Mom, looks maxing, aura. Chances are you've probably heard at least one of those things. And if you know what they all mean, you know that they add up to one particular thing. And that thing is looking cool.
In today's society, we try our hardest to look cool while also trying to look nonchalant. But to me, this is rather performative. So, how do you actually be cool? Or, in other words, aura farm? Well, as a two-time TEDx speaker, software engineer, award-winning artist, and down 30 pounds, I'd like to think I know a thing or two on how to aura farm by being a good person.
First, let's define aura farming. According to Merriam-Webster, the Gen Z slang aura farmer means to do something to look cool. To me, to aura farm is to be a good person. I mean, when you think of the great aura farmers, who do you think of? Chances are they're benefiting those around you. Take Superman, for example. He looks cool by saving the day, protecting others by fighting the bad guys. Still not convinced? Take out your phones and search up popular aura farmers. You'll get the likes of shonen anime characters from hit series who also happen to help other people. But if you're not a superhero or a fictional character, how can you aura farm? Just be a good person. It's as simple as that. Take a look at this diagram. First, you be kind, and then others will be kind to you, and because they're being kind to you, you start to feel good. And so, you be kind, thus generating aura, and the cycle continues. So you're telling me the key to aura farming is just to be kind? Easy, right? Not quite. Well, if you're having struggles being kind to yourself, how can you be kind to others? Well, allow me as I show you the ropes into aura farming. Rule number 1, actions follow identity, and education builds security. I wanted to learn what it took to be a good person. I studied psychology, sociology, read books in philosophy, and even took a class in ethics to learn more. To further expand my education, I tried to civilly debate others online and felt like I'd lose aura if I stood by opinions that weren't factually backed up. I figured humility was better than coping and gained net aura when I learned from being wrong. And so, education built security in how I approached virtually anything. Being a good person reduces friction in a lot of places. At school, work, and even social settings, it's an unspoken rule to be good. For example, because I was confident in my good intentions, if I heard my name in drama, I'd rest assured knowing that it was likely a misunderstanding, as it misaligned with my character. And sometimes when I did accidentally hurt someone, even when I meant well, I would be receptive to fixing it, which, once again, is a net aura gain. Confidence naturally came from solidifying who I was. I was also very competitive growing up. It pushed me to try and be the best at anything I want to do. I found myself buried in manila sheets of paper where I prolifically drew comics to entertain my class. Exhibit A.
Ninja animals. Kids at school loved it, and then deemed me the art kid. Once, I drew a girl and ran to show my mom. I was so proud of it. And then she said, "What a beautiful elephant." I was distraught as it wasn't an elephant, but that's okay. I was the art kid after all. The mere identity of being deemed artsy was enough to positively reinforce my behaviors. And so I drew more. Even though I wasn't the best starting out, I'd improve over time.
More and more I drew, I eventually became better at. I drew animations on the Nintendo DS and practiced sketching in art class. I would then go on to medal at state for a visual arts competition, be hired as a painting instructor, and more recently, win JP Morgan's DFW art competition, getting featured on the firm's newsletter and personally received praise from a chief financial officer's executive assistant. To objectively improve my art, I owe most of my success to this one principle. Draw what you see, not what you think you see.
Similarly, into becoming a better person, I had to see my faults plainly for what they were and then seek help to educate myself in order to improve.
People of the audience, I have a question. Am I wearing a red shirt?
Oh, right? I'm so secure in the fact that if somebody were to come up to me and say, "That's a red shirt," I wouldn't bat an eye. Take that mentality and apply it to who you are. Be so confident in what you have and don't have that if somebody were to make a comment about you, you would remain relatively unfazed. But let's face it, the hard truth is that people will always have something to say. Judgment is inevitable. But the good news is, the degree of which is a lot smaller than you may think it is. In the 2000s, a study was done over this very phenomenon.
In one experiment, they had a student wear a Barry Manilow t-shirt in a room full of peers. Embarrassed, the subject had recorded that he felt like he was noticed by at least half the people. When surveying his peers after this experiment, they asked him, what was he wearing? Does anybody want to take a guess on how many people remembered? Well, it was less than 25%. Less than 25% of the people surveyed were able to recall correctly. We're so paranoid of being perceived, we forget that everyone is often more concerned with themselves. They probably care more about what they're wearing to notice what anybody else is. Once I learned that, I was able to act more freely. I strut the school hallways acting like I owned the place. I looked around, saw that nobody cared, and proudly just walked down the middle of the school hallway, making it my own runway. But I wasn't always this confident. I used to envy people when they had something I want. I grew up without a lot of money and couldn't keep up with my risks. And so I hid from society, kept myself in a social bubble, echoing sentiments that rich, fit, popular people were strictly superficial. I know now that that is anything but true. In my adulthood, I've met people from different walks of life, many of them starting from the bottom up to become both attractive and good people. In the past, I just saw the results and never tried to learn what it took for them to get there. That brings me to rule number 2. Have empathy. People didn't know my story either. I was overweight for most of my life. There was no urgency to look a certain way, and my friend group never made it a point of conversation. But that didn't stop me from wanting to look like all the other kids in my class. Every year in my diary since middle school, I'd write one thing on the top of my New Year's resolutions. Lose weight. I didn't know how, but I knew that I really wanted to.
With each passing year, however, it became more and more evident that I made no real progress towards it. A year ago, when I first started my weight loss journey, I was called fat a lot. I'd always make excuses for these people, as they were my friends, and so I was okay with these jokes. But little by little, these jokes would feel a lot more intense. Standing in line, I got excited about the prospects of weight loss. I talked about it with the intent to pass the time, to which she responded by touching my upper arm, letting the flab jiggle, and questioned, "Are you going to work on that, though?" I had another friend who was receptive of my weight loss journey and tried to guide me. At the time, it was difficult to balance school, stress, let alone manage my health, and so I hardly made progress. Thus, a wave of fat comments came flooding in, even finding themselves in group settings. One time at a friend's house for a huge dinner gathering, I was urged to weigh myself openly to check my progress. Agreeing, I stood on the scale and saw that I hardly lost any weight, if at all, and then sat down, playfully claiming defeat. It was a lighthearted thing to me at the time, but then a friend asked me in front of the entire group, "Did you even try?" After hearing that, I had to leave the room so I wouldn't cry on the spot. It's been a year since that night. I've graduated, and I don't see those friends quite as often. In the time I haven't seen them, I've lost 30 pounds healthily, reduced my body fat by 15%, and built muscle on top of that. Recently, just to be courteous, I reached out to inform them that I'd bring this up in the speech, and preface that I had no hard feelings. I couldn't predict the response, though. At the very top of my screen, I saw a notification that read, "I apologize for the past me. You look great now there." At the time of reading it, I don't know why, but I burst into tears and cried for hours. After I was done sobbing, I reflected. Those friends didn't know, but I tried. I tried so much. I kept working at it every day. I walked 10K steps, lifted weights multiple times a week, and weighed myself and every gram of food daily.
Some days I would mess up, but I had faith in myself and kept going. Now, I don't know why they said the things they did. I don't know their circumstances either. But I chose to respond with kindness, hoping to encourage and bully it. After all, it was easier for me to improve when others had empathy.
Luckily, it was not all doom and gloom on my weight loss journey. People have encouraged me, given me advice, rides to the gym, and even offered to cook me healthy lunches out of their own generosity. These people were the Aura farmers. I don't think I would have been as successful in my journey had it not been for their support. They inspired me to keep going. As they were so far ahead of me in progress, they just wanted to see me improve. This is how I see it. To reach your goals, you must overcome the ditch of cringe. Only then can you enter the cool club. A lot of people won't even attempt the depths of cringe. It is an arduous and oftentimes humbling journey, hence the name. And this is where they fall, outside the craft. From here, people will try to knock you down so they can see eye to eye with you at the bottom. But those standing on the top of the hill would rather uplift you so that you may see what it looked like from the top. Sometimes people's comments are just projections or even a lack of awareness. They might never know what it takes to get to the top. So, with how many people there are in the world, with so much to say, carefully choose whose opinions you listen to. You cannot control their actions, just your reaction. In conclusion, it turns out that being kind to yourself and others is the best way to Aura farm. Because I chose kindness, I'm constantly met with overwhelming praise that I would have never foreseen. It felt like just yesterday, in middle school, I would write down every compliment I got, just because they were so far and few to me. But I've come a long way from people-pleasing and bending at their will just to be accepted. And so when I genuinely built an identity, especially one around being good, I learned to be happy. You have everything to lose by being poor, relationships and opportunities. So please, be kind. It costs nothing. Choose kindness because you'll never know. You might become somebody's Aura farming superhero. Thank you for listening.